Hello today. Welcome to music class in the whapping era of the Proving Grounds. Thank you. Welcome. So today we're talking about PaRappa, the Wappa. This was originally a PS1 game, ported to the PSP, and then remastered/ported to the PS4. We are talking about the PS4 version specifically in this. So, if you're not familiar with PaRappa, it is a music rhythm game where you play a rapping little dog humanoid. Each stage is a pretty simple little timeline where you'll get commands to hit that'll go with lyrics for the rap. There's also a very simple rating system where you have, I believe it's cool, good, bad, and awful. You have to at least stay in good to finish a song. If you go into bad and awful, you will fail the song and not be able to move on. And if you want to finish the story of the game, you need to complete the initial stages in normal. Upon doing them in easy, you will not get access to finishing the game's normal storyline. However, there is also a additional special song, but you have to basically master every fucking stage and shit. I don't remember the exact, but it's just more of a Easter egg type thing. Now, with my experience with PaRappa is with the PSP version and this version. I've never played the original on the PS1, and the reason I want to state that is with the negatives. So, let's get into the negatives. First negative that affects the PSP and the PS4 versions is, if you're not really aware of how Japanese usually dealt with their codes for their games, until about late PS2, PS3 generation of gaming, a lot of companies just tossed the original source code to ensure there was no compromising issues. And of course, in this digital age of re-releasing games and being able to put your game out on digital stores, that hurts making that really easy. So companies that did that don't have the original assets to easily fix and usually have to hack or find ways to access their game to manipulate them into such. So, well, I don't know the history of the PSP version. Hackers did actually find out the PS4 version is it's a modified version of the PSP version with new models for the characters during the stages. But one of the negatives is that the cutscenes for the story are low, and they could not be touched up on. So, while not as noticeable, terribly looking on the PSP, on the PS4 they look awful. The little scenes that you have the characters in, they're on a small little screen and everything. It looks terrible, sadly. There was sadly, because the assets were probably surely lost being a PS1 game. There was no way to, even if they were to hack them, to really touch up on them. Well, accessing the game models would be a more easier thing to touch up, which that is something they touched up on the PS4 version for sure. Now, I could not play the PSP version of this game. There always seemed like there was something off. My history with the PaRappa's franchise as general, I played the second game first. I got access to the first one on the PSP, and then I got lucky finding the spin-off game with, what's her name, Amajama? Something like that on the PS1. I found one copy of that thrifting. I haven't got around to trying it out, but, something I'd like to do in the future one day, especially now that I have a FrameMeister, which may actually beneficially make it really look nice, maybe. But anywho, that's something else. Off topic. point is, something seemed off about the PSP version, and looking at forums and that over the years, a lot of other people certainly agreed that there was something off about the buttons. When getting the PS4 version, this is something I was really hoping was fixed, and overall it is, except for one stage. I don't know what it is, but the fourth stage, the cooking chicken stage, there's something terribly wrong with the buttons. Like, if you look at my live stream videos of this, I had virtually no real problems, except for a few minor, like, you know, just normal minor problems learning the rhythm of the other stages, even the very final stage. But stage 4 gave me unimaginable hours of agonizing pain to go through on the PS4 version. I have no idea what's up with the timing, and I have looked it up multiple times, and there are many other people who agree there was something off about stage 4 in the PS4 version. I'm not entirely sure, and I've always wanted to try the original PS1 version to conform whether it was the remaster or not, but I don't know anyone who's played the original version or has the original version. But 1, 2, 3 were all pretty decent. 5 went smooth. 6 was the only other one that gave me some trouble, and that was more normal. But 5 was just crazy. And like I said, there is a 7th secret kind of song, but it's an extra for basically just mastering the game on all the hard, insane mastery of it. And if you're playing the PS4 version, there is a platinum and trophies for this, unlike the PSP version, which did not support any trophies. So if you're into trophies, you do have a number of trophies for succeeding, failing, and all that kind of stuff, and getting cool ranking, and, you know, being the great hip-hop star of the 90s or 80s or whatever the fuck year the game's really trying to take place in. Now, as for the story, which goes backseat being a rhythm game, it's all about the music. But for just a little quick thing on the story, PaRappa is just going through his daily life, love and friendship and that, and essentially just trying to deal with his everyday life, along with some beats and rhythm and training to solve, well, his problems. The second game really goes in a lot more of an interesting, bigger story, where the first game's a lot more smaller scale on that. So, like I said, the story's not really the big thing. As for the beats and the rhymes, now if you're like into modern rap with, you know, all the coursing and shit, this is definitely not going to be your game for sure. This is more wholesome rapping here. Silly stuff in that. Starts off easy in that. Some of them are weird, like the 5th stage is just a giant showdown for who gets the only toilet stall in the stage against the previous rap masters you went up against. Personally, I like 3, 2. Those are my faves, personally. 6 is pretty good, too. But 5, it's not really a serious story, honestly. It's just really about the beats and the raps and that, and it does pretty good. It does its job. The only one I had trouble with on the PS4 version, like I said, was 4. Now, when it comes to the PSP version, I could not get past stage 2 even on easy. Like, I don't know. There's something off about the buttons on the PSP version. Now, I have a Model 1000 and 3000 of PSPs. Now, I believe I've only ever tried it on my 1000 model. I don't think I've ever tried it on my recording PSP, but I don't know. There was some off about the buttons with the PSP version. I cannot really recommend the PSP version. It's probably pretty cheap. I think it's about $14, $10 in range. The original game, I'm not actually really sure what the original game's value is. I have to look that up real quick. But I can tell you, when it comes to the PS4 version, digitally you're looking at $14.99 for digitally. Now, I have a physical version, then the only physical English version was the Asian version. And the Asian version, while sold out on PlayAsia, is not actually in high demand quite yet. it seems to float around $25 to $35 on eBay and such. And looking up on Amazon that for PaRappa for the PS1, it actually seems to be hovering between 30 to 50 range, going above 50 for really good condition copies. So it seems like PaRappa ain't completely horribly priced on its original software too. And yeah, PSP version, oh wow, it's like $3 to $5 actually for the PSP version, so that's cheap, but I can't really recommend that version. It's pretty off-put for a lot of reasons. Now, PaRappa is, for its time, it was a really interesting game, because in the PS1 era, rhythm games were still a much more newer thing versus now, where they're very common. But PaRappa is, well, a really short game overall. Once you go through all the stages, aside from trying to master it on the hardest difficulty and get the last little bonus song unlocked, it's really short. Now, if you do get the PSP or the PS4 version, since it's based on the PSP version, there's actually options for some additional add-on songs that are kind of remixes and redos and kind of weird shit, using some of the stages of previous stages. There are, how many are there? There's 4, there's 8. There's 8 additional add-on songs if you go look for them under the options menu. And they're mostly a bunch of just little extras. They're not any gigantic thing. They're not part of the story. Like I said, they're just in the menus. So, they're not in the original one. As far as I know, those were exclusive originally to the PSP version. Now, there is a rumble option for the PS4 version. I don't think that was in the original version. It's obviously not in the PSP version, because the PSP didn't have rumble. Well, it will rumble with the beat. You can use that to help play along. And that's really it. There's not much else. The first PaRappa was just a pretty simple PS1 game that has a pretty decent following. Honestly, I would love to see a sequel, because the second game added a lot more song stages and went way more into doing a storyline. But it's a simple game. Is it worth like 30-something bucks nowadays? Depends on how much you're into maybe checking out the wrapping and that of the songs. Like I said, you only get a very small handful of songs. I would say, like, for digital price, $15 ain't too bad, but honestly, you know me, I love my physical versions. Honestly, I think I wouldn't pay more than $25. It's definitely not as broken as the PSP version is, at least in my experience of it, but something's still wrong about the Stage 4, and there was an update released for the PS4 version, but all it says is it did bug fixes, and a lot of people were disappointed that it did not fix Stage 4, so as of right now, I've even checked to make sure there's no new updates. There's no new updates, at least for the Asian version, affecting Stage 4, so it's kind of a tough sale, because it doesn't really have a lot added. They did, like I said, touch up the models for the PS4 version, but the cutscenes for the story are so old quality, they literally did nothing new to them, so it's really a bit of a shame that they couldn't have done anything. Because, I mean, PaRappa is not exactly, you know, some giant graphic overhouse. It's a bunch of paper cutout looking characters. But I'd recommend it if you want to check out some of the older rhythm games. I mean, they're all older rhythm games than PaRappa, but still, you know, it was an age, well, rhythm before and during PaRappa was still a very small niche thing compared to now, where there's lots and lots of rhythm type games of many different calibers. They're mixing ideas like RPG shit into them these days. But if you want to check out an oldie, I would check it out. I would try to aim around $25 if you want to get physically. I would try to avoid going above 30 at least. I wouldn't go 35 above. But who knows, maybe down the road it's might become pricey, because like I said, the Asian version is the only version with English. Now, you could obviously play the Japanese version, but I believe, unlike some games, like, say, like Resident Evil, that actually kept English voice acting even in the Japanese version, I'm pretty sure the PaRappa games are in Japanese if you get the Japanese version, I'm pretty sure. So, well, you could play the songs and stuff still, because it's, you know, you get to see the button prompts and that. It's about the rhythm, not the lyrics. But you know, you wouldn't be able to understand the song. So that depends, you know. If you listen to a lot of Japanese music, that probably wouldn't bother you. If you want some English, that probably could be bothersome. Kind of depends on that, so I mean, that's really all it is. It's a simple scoring system. There's nothing super complicated about how it does your score in the first game. So those are pretty much my thoughts of it. It's nothing but an oldie but a goodie. I enjoyed it still. It was nice to actually get to play through the game because, like I said, I've tried multiple occasions playing the PSP version, and there's just something wrong with the timing of the buttons. I don't know if it's because of how it's squished on the screen or something about the programming. I don't know. It just didn't work for me. It didn't work for me. But Stage 4 is the only one I had a problem with. This version, I would love to hear from anyone's opinion on Stage 4 who's played the original PS1 version, because that is something I've always wondered, and I could hardly ever find anyone talking about that on forums. It's either people think it's broken or nobody really knows what's wrong with it. But I would love to hear any opinion on that if you happen to be familiar with the PS1 version. Anyway, those are my thoughts. There's not really much of an ending. It's just, like I said, kind of an everyday life thing. So it's just kind of a, hey, yay, we believe in, we're all good. So it's not really anything to talk about. Spoilers, though, really. So those are my thoughts. If you feel like you learned a little something interesting, feel free to leave a like. And if you feel like you've learned nothing, feel free to leave a dislike, guilt-free. But I can't guarantee you'll make it out of the proving grounds then. Have a delightful weapon day. And don't forget, turn to the left, hit the brakes, my dear friend.
That's it for today. PaRappa, I'm so proud of you. Congratulations.
All right. Thank you, teacher.